Hi everyone, and welcome back to Across the Gridiron. I am Matt, and now normally when I start these videos, I will make some kind of joke at this man's expense, but I'm not going to do that this week. It's clear this guy is in mourning. So Eddie, commiserations to you, my friend. Just try and sum up briefly how you are feeling right now as we record this episode.
You know, the Dallas Cowboys fans are across the world. It's one of the most popular franchise football team. Depending on who you look at, whether it's Forbes or, one of those guys, they'll be telling you that it's one of the most valuable sports team in the whole world. Some of us have to stay up to 1 a.m. in the morning to watch a Cowboys game, right? We live in the United Kingdom, right? So sometimes, people don't understand how the consequences of their actions go to affect a lot of people. It's strictly business for some people. And for others, it's a lot more than that. So, I mean, I'm typically dressed up in the cowboy gear, ready for this podcast. But today it hasn't been a good today. Well, actually, it hasn't been a good weekend, right? For those of you who don't know what has happened,
Yeah.
Micah Parsons is now a Green Bay Packer.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're basically gonna dedicate this whole episode. This is let's just call it the Cowboys Corner special, right? We are going to dedicate this episode purely to the Parsons trade. We're going to look at what happened. We're going to look at why it happened. We're going to talk some of the narrative and the emotions off the back of it, and also how this affects both the Cowboys and also the Packers. Eddie will have to take those Cowboys tinted shades off at some point to look at how this will affect Green Bay Packer going forward. But this is what we're going to talk about. But look, first of all, as I said, let's break some of the key stats down, or some of the key trade details of this deal. Let's break it down a little bit. So yeah, as you said, Micah Parsons, he's gone to the Packers after a long contract standoff. He has signed a record-breaking 4-year deal worth an eye-watering $188 million deal. Now, again, just for context, that's the biggest salary ever paid to a non-quarterback in NFL history. So the guy got paid, right? Now, in return for Parsons, the Cowboys have received Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks from the Green Bay Packers. Now, that is the nuts and bolts of it. And you know, this has been a long time coming. Eddie, do you just want to, before we go down into the goods, the bads, the ugly of it, do you want to take us through, from a Cowboys fan, how this started and how we got to the position where we are today?
Um, Micah Parsons, a generational talent, came into the Cowboys 4 years ago. And as soon as he had that first game, we knew we had found the one. This is like the Matrix, right? We found Neo, right? And we knew that he was the one. He was the promise. He was the one that the Oracle prophesied that was going to come in and deliver the Cowboys from what has been arguably the worst, cowboy, you know, sort of period in a while. You found the one. So, of course, when Micah Parsons was coming up for a renewal, we thought it was a done deal. I mean, you paid Dak Prescott 60 billion. You paid CeeDee Lamb. So of course, Micah Parsons, we're like, no chance. You're gonna pay Micah Parsons, right? So all Cowboy fans were just waiting. This is Jerry Jones, the drama, you build up the drama during the offseason, and then you pay the man, right? Ezekiel Elliott went through it. It's almost like a rite of passage, in the Dallas Cowboys. You just gotta go. This is how they toughen you up. Back in the day, when they wanted to, when you were kind of crossing from being a boy to a man, they would take you to the jungle, you go on a hunt, and kill some rabbits or something like that. No offense to rabbits that might be worried about at this point in time. But
This is an analogy that's going off on the tangent a little bit here, Eddie.
but you go do something, right? And then you're a man, right? So to become like a cowboy, you have to pass through the Jerry Jones corner, right? where he roughens you up a little bit, passes you trial by fire, you get the bag, and then it's all singing and dancing. So we are all ready for this movie. We've seen this movie before. This is like season, episode, whatever of this, right? So there was no doubt that Micah Parsons was going to get paid. And then I think the alarm bells started, ringing when, we had Jerry Jones say, "Oh, I had a meeting with Micah Parsons in April, and we had an agreement." I was like, "What? You had an agreement? Well, what are we talking about here?" And then, you're thinking, okay, so you had an agreement. What are we debating? Is it the how much you want to pay him? What's the holdup? Is it a number of years? Is it what the guarantees is? Because we know what that's all about in the NFL. It's all about the guarantees and all of that. Um, and then we started hearing funny stuff, like, who's Jerry just starts talking about, oh, he doesn't know who the agent is. And I'm like, hold on a second, what's going on here? What are we doing here? This is Micah Parsons, right? This is your best player on the team. You gotta pay him. What are we talking about? And then you're like, okay, this is all negotiation tactics, and we're talking about, Micah Parsons. There were lots of other people who were, Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin, we're even talking about TJ Watt, at some point, we're all talking about his contract. So we're like, yeah, they're gonna pay these guys. Then, it's like clockwork. TJ Watt gets the check, right? Like, yep, we knew it was gonna happen. And then other people started getting their money. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's all right. This is Jerry Jones. We wait till the end. Even people started putting trades in. Terry McLaurin put a trade in. Trey Hendrickson put a trade in. I was like, okay, well, it's part of it. And then the next thing, Micah Parsons puts the trade in. I'm like, okay, this is serious, right? Because Cowboys players do not put trades in, right? So something started to smell a little bit fishy at this point. And it was almost like, okay, I'm not so sure. Remember, we talked about this, and I was like, it was a shocker to everyone because it's like, this is not cowboy player type behavior. But even at that time, we're still hopeful. We're thinking, okay, Jerry Jones gonna wake up, and they're gonna pay him. But then it was interview after interview, interview with Stephen A, interview with Michael Irvin, and anyone that wanted to talk about it. Jerry Jones was giving an interview and was talking about, the fact that there's a contract already in place. Micah Parsons is under contract for 3 years. That was when I started getting worried. When it was like, Micah Parsons is under contract for 3 years, because I'm thinking to myself, how are you going to pay your best player in the team 24 million? That is not even up to the market level. You're even paying him lower than what you're paying your wide receivers and even some of the other defensive players in your team. Not to talk about across the league, what other defensive players who've not done half of what he's done, you know, getting paid. And then you're like, okay, this is not right. And it seemed like at some point we thought there was going to be a switch, right? Jerry Jones, the gambler, comes out, on Netflix. You're thinking, oh, this is all part of the publicity stunt, right? Jerry just wants to keep dragging this thing. And then 1 week before, the first game, Micah Parsons gets the back and it's all cowboy news all over the media. And then last weekend, the story started emerging, the Cowboys are listening to trade offers for Micah Parsons. And I'm still like, no, that's not possible. So I wasn't even looking at anything. I was like, yeah, okay. And then you sent me the message. I was like, what?
Did I break the news to you?
Yes, you did.
You didn't tell me that.
You broke the news to me.
When you didn't respond to me, I assume, oh my God, he's even known and he's actually he's hidden in a dark room and he's not coming out.
No.
Until this evening when we said, are we recording tonight? You hadn't messaged me since. I assumed you thought I was just rubbing it in, but I broke the news to you. Wow.
You broke the news to me and I was in a state of shock. Honestly, I felt like I'd lost a loved one. That's how I felt that weekend. And a lot of Cowboy fans felt exactly like that. There's this young Cowboy fan that absolutely broke into tears. And, Micah Parsons, had to call him, and
Mm.
just sort of, give him a little bit of a pep talk and all of that. But the whole,
Did he send him a Green a
gonna
Green
send
Bay
him a
jersey
Green Bay
instead with a
Packer
number one on it?
jersey,
Yeah.
a number one jersey. Honestly, everybody was going mental, right? And it's like, how do you do this? Listen, the best analogy I can think about what the Cowboys have done is, and I love this. This is not from me, so I don't take credit from it. This is Mike Florio from Football Focus, and he said that what the Cowboys have done is a bit like you go and get a lottery ticket, right? And the whole point of a lottery ticket is that you scratch it and you hope that it's a winner, right? So you go get a lottery ticket, you scratch it, and lo and behold, it's a winner. But what do you do? Instead of go and cashing that lottery ticket for money, you take the lottery ticket back and say you want more lottery tickets to scratch, hoping
Mhm.
that the next two that you're going to get is going to be a winner. Because that's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys have done. You go through the draft hoping that the first round pick that you take is going to be a hit. And in the last 5 years, CD Lamb aside, Micah Parsons was the only other first round pick that has been a hit, especially in the defense. I mean, we had Taco Charlton, at some point that everyone was thinking he was going to be the guy, right? We've seen had, Mazzy Smith, who everyone thought was going to be the guy. This is after Micah Parsons. So it's hard. It's no guarantee that you go and draft a player, right? And that player becomes what you think he's going to be. So to now trade him away for first round picks, thinking that you're going to hit in 2026 or 2027, that's just crazy and lunacy. I mean, you don't do that. Kansas City Chiefs, when Chris Jones came up to getting paid, they had a little bit of a struggle, hold out, lost the first game, and they just signed him up. We're not playing around anymore. We're not doing this nonsense, right? You get your best players and you sign them up. That is what you do. So now this thing became personal between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones because clearly this is, for me, we talked about this. There was an element that this is all about power. I'm a billionaire.
Mhm.
I do what I want when I want. You cannot tell me how to do business. I've been doing business for so long. Why do I have to go and speak to an agent? And it's quite funny, actually, because reports have just come out today that Darren Bland, one of the Cowboys' defensive players, has just signed a contract, right?
Mhm.
90 something million contract. And guess what? In the news, if that's to be believed, his representative was involved. So, 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 so is it that you don't like talking to representatives, or you just didn't want to do this because this is the biggest star, in your team, and you're like, you know what, I need to cut him to size. He needs to bend to the will of Jerry Jones, bend the knee to the Cowboys owner, or else you don't get anything. It's just,
Mm.
it's just absolutely crazy. And of course, the narratives that started, you know, Jerry Jones comes out and says, we did this to help our run. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right. Do you know what helps your run? When you get points on the board, teams don't run, they pass because they need to quickly get points as well. So when you're not getting points on the board, no, guess what teams do? They run on you. Like, that's just the NFL, right? So you have multiple ways of fixing this so-called run. And by the way, this run thing that the Cowboys have had, they've had it before Micah Parsons came. Like, it's so easy for the people to run on the Cowboys. We're talking about how many quarterbacks have come to the Cowboys and have had 200 yards running, 300 yards. The Saints, Falcons, what's Kyler Morris' team now? Arizona Cardinals,
Cardinals, yeah.
Cardinals, Eagles, what's Ravens, literally Rams. Have we forgotten the Rams playoff games that they literally ran all over the Cowboys, right? After the Cowboys won a game against Seattle, we're thinking, oh, we're gonna make some business. We hit the Rams, and basically Sean McVay just ran all over the Cowboys with all kinds of run plays. So this whole run stopping thing that Jerry Jones is trying to feed to us Cowboy fans, some of us do remember. We don't have short-term memory. Some of us did just become a Cowboy fan, last week or last year. Some of us have been going through the pains of being a Cowboy fan. It's hard enough being a Cowboy fan than for you to take away the best player that we have and then literally tell us we'll be fine. How?
Yeah, I think I think this is an owner trying to make the best of a bad situation, or certainly trying to, almost gaslight the fans a little bit. But let's talk about the fans and the fan base. I want to come on to talking about how this affects the actual team, what it actually does on the pitch. But before I do that, let's look at the fan base. Obviously, you are obviously a very passionate Cowboys fan. I think that's fair to say. But has this, and obviously you are very much in the pro Micah, anti JJ camp, but has this move divided the fan base at all? Are there some people who agree with Jerry Jones in this situation? Because again, I remember when we first started talking about this, I don't know, 4-6 weeks ago, whenever it was, I played devil's advocate a little bit and said, well, this could be a way to protect the cap and invest longer term. Now, I don't necessarily believe that. That was just me playing devil's advocate just to wind you up a little bit. But are there how is this whole story sort of taken within sort of the Cowboy Nation? Are they all anti Jerry Jones, or are there some who actually agree with what he's doing?
And believe it or not, there's a lot of Cowboys that drink everything that Jerry Jones is serving. They
They
are
drink the
in.
Kool-Aid, do they?
They drink the Kool-Aid, all in. And I saw that a lot on X, this week. There are a lot of people talking about Micah Parsons not showing up in the playoffs, and all of that. There was a guy who was talking about, Kenny Clark. I was like, who? Like, until this trade happened, I didn't even know who Kenny Clark is. And I watch a lot of football, right? And I mean, I've probably heard his name, but it's not a name. Like, when you're talking about the best 10 defensive players, you don't hear Kenny Clark's name being mentioned. Not at all. So when you talk about Micah Parsons, you can't go past 5 players without mentioning Micah Parsons, right? So yes, there are a lot of fans that are thinking, yeah, Micah Parsons didn't really deliver, so there's no point paying that 47 million. It's better to invest that money, and people start becoming cap specialists all of a sudden. I'm like, what's our business with the cap? We are fans, for crying out loud. This, teams have sold this idea to fans that they should be caring about the cap. It's a bit like, your company. Like, if you're employed by a company and, it's like, well, we agreed a salary, right? That you're going to pay me, right? I don't need to know where you're going to get that money from. That wasn't part of our agreement when I became your employee. You didn't sit down and say to me, hey, you know what? Depending on how many people we sign in HR, how many people come into HR, or how many people come into tech, or how many people come into marketing, we will decide, whether you should get a raise or, you should be paid. I don't care about that. My contract says that you need to pay me this amount every single month. I expect to get that, right? It's not my business to work out the financial, balancing and accounting of the company. So I don't know why fans we should be caring about the cap, right? The front office, that's their job. Their job is go find the best players, get them at the optimum price. And that also just annoys me when people start talking about the cap because this is a self inflicted injury by the Dallas Cowboys. You could have paid Dak Prescott a year early, saved yourself 10, 15 million a year. We're not talking about 10, 15 million in total, 10, 15 million a year. You could have done that. You could have paid CD Lamb before Justin Jefferson's got paid, right? Could have saved yourself maybe about 5 million, right? So if you start stacking that up, and those contracts were done in the last 2 years, so you could have saved 30, 40 million, right? That you could actually distribute properly, to the team and build a team. But what do? You wait, you wait, you wait, you wait, and then you pay more than you're supposed to pay. And then you turn around and then you telling people we've got to respect the cap. We don't have enough money to go around. We have to consider that for the best of the team. Micah Parsons declared almost 2 years ago, said, hey, listen, if they bring a contract to me right now, I'm ready to sign. I want to be a Cowboy. I want to stay here. I want to stay here for life. 18 months ago, the going rate was $34 million. Max Crosby just signed $34 million. You could have got Micah Parsons for 37,
Mm-hmm.
38, maybe even 39. So I
It's like
mean,
it's great. It's crazy.
it's just absolutely crazy. And yes, the fan base is split. People are saying this is very gutsy of Jerry Jones, moving away from what he's traditionally done, deciding not to be held hostage by a player, cutting their losses and all of that. And I feel that a lot of that people are probably wishing that it was Dak Prescott that was caught. And I feel like when that didn't happen, people have kind of transferred that energy into Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons was not the one. Of all the players that have been paid recently, he was the one player that you pay.
Yeah,
I,
I think the thing is, I mean, just on that point, since I sorry to jump in, is that Dak Prescott is a very good quarterback,
yeah,
right? But he's not a generational talent quarterback, right? And I mean that
yeah,
respectfully.
yeah,
He is in that we've talked about that elite, sub elite. Again, a lot of people have him in like 16th position in terms of the best quarterbacks in the league at the moment, right? He is someone who you probably could have cut, and in a couple years' time, you could have replaced.
yeah.
Whether they could have had an interim QB or, and, you haven't particularly been pulling up any trees in the last couple of seasons anyway. But you could have had an interim QB and then save yourself for the big draft, which is obviously we know is coming this summer
Yeah.
when it comes to quarterback talent. But Parsons is a generational talent in his position. Right. The one thing I don't quite understand is I see you see it in a lot of sports. I understand the argument is you don't want your team and your franchise to be held hostage by a player.
Yeah.
Right. That is absolutely fine. If Dallas did not think that Parsons is worth the money that Parsons is or the money that Parsons is getting, sorry, at the Packers, again, that is fine, right? Because there are cap considerations, there are things to do, and if he's asking for ridiculous money, then fine. You have to protect the long-term success of your franchise.
Mhm.
However, if you are thinking long term, as you were saying, you would have got that contract signed years ago when you had this generational talent who you said you could have got for 35 to 40 mil. You by letting it drag on and get to the last year, all the power that you have as a franchise, you give away, right? You give all that power away to the player, and yeah, I think they've again from an outside perspective, I think they've dropped a massive. They've dropped the ball massively here.
Oh, it's a big
Um,
clanger. No question
and
about it.
and I can understand fans. I mean, look, I support a team here in England who have got a really bad owner, and until recently, there have been people who have always backed in light of, regardless of any and all evidence that this owner is a bad owner, they will always stand up for him in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people do at Dallas, and they do it across everyone. People will always put the team first, and people who put the team first, therefore put the owner first, because there aren't many franchises in NFL who are uh, who was an owner is synonymous with the team as Jerry Jones is with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Right. So I could understand the fan split to an extent, but this just seems like a massive, massive
I
error.
mean, it's crazy, and I'm really disappointed, about all the things that I've started hearing now, and there's a lot of negative reports that have started coming out about how he's not been a great teammate, how he's been selfish and self-centered, how his podcast has been dividing the room, going up to the quarterback, and I'm like, why are you speaking for Dak Prescott? Let Dak Prescott come out, and talk about Micah Parsons and say that, it's good riddance, right? If that's how he really feels, about that. I feel like the smear campaign, has almost begun just to sort of make it feel better about what they're doing so that people start to think maybe he had character flaws. And because of those character flaws, that was the reason why he's moved. And let's be clear, right? You don't pay 47 million on a player if you think that he does not have leadership qualities and he has character flaws. And I don't know how you sell that. I don't think there's any team. I mean, you just look across the league, right? Players that get that kind of money are not players that have character flaws. This guy has not had any off the field issues at all since he became a Cowboys. I mean, and normally that's the normal thing for Cowboys, off the field issues. It's just a normal thing. Cowboys get into all the off the field issues all the time, but he's never had any off the field issues. And this whole podcast thing, right? You've got the owner of the Dallas Cowboys going on a radio talk show every single week. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? Which owner talks more to the media than the Cowboys owner?
No, no one loves the limelight as much as Jerry Jones.
So
That's true.
if that's the kind of culture, then why are you then hitting on Micah Parsons for having a podcast? And this is a guy that his podcast has not done anything to stop him being productive. He had 12 sacks last season and he missed 4 games.
Yep. So it's clearly it's not. I wouldn't necessarily call it a smear campaign just yet, but these are just people. The PR machine is just in overdrive right now, right? And they are trying to get. They're trying to back up the people, the fan base who we were just talking about, who are pro Cowboys in this, pro Jerry Jones. They're trying to, reiterate or reaffirm that base, and also try and keep someone who was sat on the bench. Because look, at the end of the day, players come and players go. The Cowboys will always be there. Okay, you, my friend, are a Dallas Cowboys fan. You're not a Micah Parsons stan, are you?
Well, I might
So
be down.
you might be. So yes,
I might be cheering for the Packers now
yeah.
on,
Okay,
week 4 when
that
they
number
come
one.
when they come and Micah Parsons get the sack, and I'll be like, yes.
Yes, take that, Prescott.
Take down he goes.
So yeah,
Prescott,
you're like one of those horrendous fans who just will support whoever Cristiano Ronaldo plays for. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Well, to be
But anyway,
to be fair, right? I kind of say that I had that for Thierry Henry a little bit, because I mean, it's hard to like not love Thierry Henry. I mean, for what he did for Arsenal, I literally followed him, wherever he went. I had a soft spot for Barcelona.
it's all right having soft spots, but you're not going to change from being a Cowboys fan, are
No,
you?
I am gonna be a Cowboy
Let's
fan,
be honest. So,
but I need time to grieve and process this.
you are in mourning. You are in mourning. So look, let's shift gear now. Let's try and
Okay.
take some of the emotion out of this, if it's possible, Eddie. Let's look at what this practically means on the field. What
Yeah.
it means on the gridiron, right? This show is called Across the Gridiron. It's not
Yeah.
called Cowboys Corner, although it pretty much is these days. Um, so look, you have you've lost a player. You've lost an elite player. You've got trade picks. You've got
Kenny
Clark. The
Clark.
Packers have obviously gained this elite player, right?
Yeah.
So let's keep the ball rolling on the Cowboys for now.
Yeah.
Obviously, this makes you a weaker team.
No doubt.
Certainly on the pass defense.
Yeah.
Yep, your run defense is probably a bit stronger with the addition of Clark. That's fine, but your pass defense is lost. And before this trade, a lot of experts and pundits had you around that kind of projected to win about
Yeah.
and a half games this season. That has now dropped to seven ish games. So
Surprise. Seven seems high.
well, yeah. I mean, everyone thought you were going to have a middling season this year. The running feeling is you're now probably going to have a losing season this season, whereas previously you were on the fence. Let's look at it from the Cowboys' perspective first. How do you think it's going to affect the season as a whole, purely from a playing perspective?
I think the Cowboys have now become another team that begins with C, the Cincinnati Bengals. Remember last season, they were scoring 35 points and still losing?
Hmm.
That might be the story of the Cowboys. Because, I mean, the offense, is no slouch, right? Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Josh Pickens, they're going to do the business, right? When Dak Prescott is healthy, he does things. He throws for crazy yards. He throws for touchdowns, all of that. The offense will be fine. But the trouble is that you play in the NFC, right? You got to look at the competition that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be up against. So you've got that monster, in the Eagles, right? That is going to come for you, right? Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, the whole 9 years, they're going to come. Then you look over and you've got the Lions, right? They've got Amon St. Brown. They've got, their running back there. His name is just escaped me now. Then you turn around and you look at, the Packers that you've traded to. They've got Josh Jacobs, like he's a beast there, as well. You turn around, you look at the Rams. The Rams have got Puka Nakua, there. So you're not playing against slouches in the NFC. The NFC has now become, I could arguably say, probably a very strong conference, just, deceptively. You might not think so, but you look at the quarterbacks and you look at the teams that are there, and you're looking to yourself and saying, well, there's stiff opposition, even in the Dallas division, up and coming Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels doing things, last season, excuse me, Terry McLaurin coming in, Dan Quinn knows the Cowboys, understands the Cowboys. So, those games are gonna be tough. The Giants have gotten better. Their defense, arguably probably the best defense in the division. Their offense might just get it together, to be average or middle of the pack. So there's competition, for the Dallas Cowboys. So this is not gonna be those sort of years where the Dallas Cowboys are just going to bully everyone in the division, right? Because typically that's what happens. The Dallas Cowboys who bully the Giants, bully the Commanders, maybe split with the Eagles, and, that's like five or so wins, right off the bat there. And then you now, pick on a few other teams in the NFC, maybe pick on a team in the NFC South, they're not really good, with the Bucks and the Saints, and all of them folks. And then, you make a 12-win season, get into the playoffs, and it's a different thing. I think that, the Cowboys are going to have games where they're going to want to stop, the opponent. They can't stop the run because I don't think that one player is going to do that. I don't think Kenny Clark, coming in, fair play to him. I don't think he's going to make the Cowboys run become super better. Now you've got the likes of Sam Williams, who are going to have to do what Micah Parsons was doing. And people forget that there was a lot of attention on Micah Parsons. So it made the other defensive players look good. When you're double teaming Micah Parsons, triple teaming Micah Parsons, other guys go and get food to eat. So I think on the field you're gonna see a regression. The offense will be good, score points, but I don't know how that defense is going to get turnovers and how it's going to stop the opposition.
Yeah, you need you know the old adage is that offense wins games, defense wins championships, right? You've weakened your defense, and the defense needs to try and get the ball in Dak Prescott's hands, right? And it's going to be a tough thing to do. The last thing I just want to touch on this from a Cowboys perspective, obviously, two of the things that you got from this trade was obviously two draft picks,
Yeah.
right? Which obviously that gives you hope, I guess. As we've said numerous times, that this next class of draft picks should be certainly a lot stronger. Certainly in quarterback, which will be interesting, I think, from a Cowboys perspective. But this give you much hope? I mean, you said previously that you haven't done particularly well at picking, draft picks over the last couple of years, other than Parsons.
Listen, 2026, everyone is talking about is the year of another deep draft with quarterbacks, and everyone is already anointing Archie Manning, who, by the way, had a terrible game last weekend, as well. So I don't know what people are thinking about that. But I mean, this is just tongue in cheek, but so 2026, you've got two, first round picks, right? You've got the one that you're gonna get, which will probably a high first round pick because you're not gonna be that good. And then you're probably gonna get the Packers, who's gonna be really good. So you're gonna get, first round pick maybe in the 20s or 20 something. If you were gonna get a good quarterback, they won't be there, right? At 20 something, right? So and it really depends on what your own first round pick is. So you haven't really gained anything, right? If you were gonna say, I'm gonna use that first round pick to pick, a quarterback, let's say that's what you wanted to do, then you're gonna have to use your own, because I guarantee that the Dallas Cowboys pick are gonna be higher than the Green Bay Packers pick. So in that sense, you haven't really gained anything, right? So I mean, draft picks are what they are, right? You just don't know what you're going to scratch from that card and what is going to reveal. So we're going to have to see, right? We're going to have to see. I think in the immediate short term, the Green Bay Packers are going to show the Cowboys what they've lost.
Yeah, well, let's move on to that then. Let's move away from the Cowboys for a second. Don't worry, it's just for a second, and let's look at Packers, because with Parsons and a young defense, they are, they're potentially in a stronger place now. Some are actually now saying that this makes them, potential championship credential here, right? So this was a bit of a weak spot for Packers last season, right? Bringing in someone like Parsons, it's going to make them significantly better. So how do you think this helps them, apart from the obvious?
I mean, it changes our way to early picks, right? Because, we were talking about this, and I think I went for the Packers, for some strange reason, almost as if prophesying that they were going to, do something, fantastic, because that
we are going to have to go back and check what you said.
I go with the Green Bay Packers because I think they have a really, really good coach. And what he's been able to do with the little that he's got, with no real star players, he's gotten them to the playoffs a number of times. He's gotten them into double-digit wins, in the league a number of times. And so I now look at it and say, the Packers were 11-6, and a lot of times they look pretty good when they played. Of course, 2 seasons ago, they absolutely shellacked the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. So I think that they're going to steal points. They're going to steal 2 or 3 games from other people in the division. They're going to take games away from the Vikings. No question without that. So if they finish 11-6 and they take 1 or 2 games from the Vikings and the Lions, that immediately puts them at 13 wins. And they take a game from, somewhere else, so I think that they win that division.
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna have to do VAR on this. But I think I did pick the Packers. That division, the NFC North, already was a strong division, right? You've got Lions, you've got Vikings, you've got Packers, you've got Bears, and there are no slouches. I think the Bears are going to be a lot better. But I think right now that whole division is thinking, oh my goodness, Cowboys, what have you done to us? How do you get Micah Parsons in our division? Because now he's going to be running after Jared Goff. He's going to be running after JJ McCarthy. He's going to be running after Caleb Williams. And they're going to see him twice, you know, this season. And that's one too many times, to have Micah Parsons running after you, at electric breakneck speed. So he's damaged the NFC North. And I think even the Eagles are probably thinking, oh my goodness, what have you done? Because Eagles would have been fancying their chances against the Cowboys because they know they can run against them. So there's nothing new. But now they probably be looking at the Green Bay Packers and thinking, now the Green Bay Packers are a threat. Because even last season, they gave them a really good game, right? When the Packers met the Eagles. And the Packers were number 10 in defense, last season. So what do you do when you add a generational talent, to your defense? It just makes your defense go right up there. So I think the Packers, people have said that the last time that they did something this big and they traded for a significant player like this, they went ahead and won the Super Bowl. And they're clearly banking on that kind of transformation happening to their team. They've already got a team that is decent, had 11 wins last season. So is Micah Parsons capable of giving them an extra win or two? I would say so. So, they could be looking at, 12-5 season, 13-4, season this year. So the Cowboys will be happy. They've done well for themselves. And listen, giving 2 first-round picks away is no big deal if you're a team that is in contention, right? Because they're going to be low first-round picks anyway. But if you get a player that can come and make an instant difference to your team right now, you've done very well. And I'm just shocked, right? This just strikes me like the Amari Cooper trade, where we traded Amari Cooper away for a 5th-round pick. And I'm like, Amari Cooper, you trade him away for a 5th-round pick. I mean, it's just 2 first-round picks doesn't feel right, like enough. And you replace him with a player that is not even the best 10 player in his position right now. So I think the Cowboys got a loss with this trade, and the Packers definitely got a win.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the Packers, that last year their pass rush just wasn't good enough, so they had to be sort of fairly creative, I think, in some of their plays and some of their pressures, using linebackers and safeties as pass rushes. But they still had a pretty good defense. I was looking at some of the stats from last season. So they finished sixth. They finished sixth overall in scoring defense. They allowed 19.9 points a game, 6 yards per game allowed. And they were 6th in yards per game allowed and 4th in takeaways with 31. So you actually take a pretty solid base and you add Parsons to that. That sounds pretty tasty.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, and I am one who loves a chat about jersey numbers and squad numbers and all this kind of stuff. I just admire the balls of Parsons going with number 1. He's the first Packer. So, sorry, no Packer has worn the number 1 since Curly Lambeau in 1925 and 1926. Right. So that's a pretty iconic name and a pretty iconic number. He's just gone and said, yep, I'll take that. Thank you very much. So look, there's absolutely no doubt that Green Bay's are much stronger for this trade, certainly in defense. And again, going back to what the projections were, I think a lot of pundits had them similar to Cowboys, around projected about the 8.5 wins beginning of the season. You're adding that trade and it's going up to 9.5 to 10. So people are saying this could be a game changer for the Packers this year. There's obviously with all of this, they're not going to win a championship because of one person. The quarterback love has to stay healthy. They have to be consistent. There's a lot of things that could change, but there's no doubt that they're a stronger team because of it. So Let's move it. Let's move this on and just wrap this up a little bit. We're going to do later on this week. We're going to be releasing our first predictions episode of the season. So we're not going to cover the predictions too much in this bit, and we are going to focus quite a lot on Eagles and Cowboys, as that's probably the biggest game of the season opener.
Yes.
But I just want you to talk very briefly about how you think the Cowboys, both the players and the fans and the whole organization, are going to go into the first game, because you're playing the Eagles. It's already a massive game for multiple reasons. It's Thursday night football, the first game of the season. It's against the bloody Eagles, for Christ's sake, and they are the Super Bowl champions. And then you've got the Jerry Jones circus rolls into town, and you're doing it without Parsons. How do you think the organization and the team and the fans go into this game versus Eagles on Thursday?
I think the organization will be on their knees praying. They'll be praying for nothing short of a miracle, against the Eagles. They're going to be hoping that the Eagles don't come in and annihilate the cow. Can't even get the word out. It's so big. And it probably gives an indication of how big the score might be, against the Cowboys. I think that for the players, you would hope that emotionally they can switch into gear. But I think that, when you lose your best player, I mean, we look at it in the sport that we love over here, right? When a team loses their best player, it does affect the rest of the team, because sometimes you have those moments where you're just looking, for someone to make a difference. And sometimes you look at your best player to do that. One of the best players, a quarterback, edge rusher, running back, wide receiver. You just look at him and you just kind of like, he's looking confident, right? If he believes, I believe, as well, because I know he's going to do something that would change the momentum of the game. So I think you can't underestimate what that would do. And I'm sure that everyone's going to try and be professional, but it's going to take a little bit energy, a little bit away, from the team. There are players who are going to be approaching their contract years, and they'll kind of be thinking about this because this is fresh. They'll be thinking, this could be me, next time that I'm in front of Jerry Jones trying to get my money, on my contract. So there is that side. I think for the fans, probably the saving thing is that this game is away. This game is at the Eagles. It's not at the Dallas Cowboys. So you're probably not going to get the pure raw reaction, from the fans. But trust me, the next game against the Giants is at the Cowboys. And so if this first game doesn't go very well, there's going to be a lot of Cowboy fans that are going to be absolutely pissed off. Now, someone did say, Cowboys could vote with their feet. They could decide to boycott the Cowboys, not go to the games and watch it. But it's hard, right? It's the boycott thing is always a difficult thing because, football gives you something, right? You get something from football that it's hard when it's being taken away. I mean, literally, once the football season is over and the football confetti and the Super Bowl confetti comes down, you're already thinking about the next season. You're eager for that, and this whole past couple of months, we've been scrapping stuff, just waiting for the football season to begin. So you almost lose something. So it's very hard for fans to stay away, no matter how bad their team is, because you wonder why stadiums keep getting full, even when teams are not performing. So I think the fans, everyone's going to be waiting for this Thursday night game. By the way, I'm not staying up for it. I don't think I can put myself through that, to get us being slammed, 40-14 or something ridiculous like that by the Eagles. So I'm just going to wait and watch the highlights in the morning because I don't want to subject myself to that kind of pain. But I think most fans are going to be looking at this game and thinking, let's see whether you stop the run. Because if you say you did this to stop the run, well, here comes your test. They don't come any bigger than Saquon Barkley. So if you show me that you can stop Saquon Barkley from getting 100 yards, I'll be like, okay, maybe he has something. Maybe it goes away to start to help the fans heal a little bit. But I don't think anyone is going to heal until week 4 because that's when the Packers play the Cowboys. And so after that game, you're probably going to get people move on and be like, if my Packers come into the Cowboys and they have a so-so game, Micah Parsons doesn't pop off with 2 or 3 sacks, people might be like, okay, we maybe we get over it. But if Micah Parsons comes in, rips off a sack, maybe a forced fumble, maybe a scoop and score, I don't know what the Cowboy Nation is going to look like that Monday morning.
No, I don't know what you're going to look like on Monday morning when we do our first review. Hopefully, though, this weekend it won't be me breaking the news to you that you've actually lost. I've already ruined your last weekend by telling you about the Parsons trade. So, okay, well, look, let's call it that, then, Eddie. Well, so we wanted to. Oh, so we said we wanted to do a podcast episode dedicated to the big news of the week, but you rejected the idea of talking about Travis Kelce's proposal to Taylor Swift, and instead you wanted to talk about Micah Parsons. So, that's on you. For anyone who wanted to get our thoughts on the Kelce Swift proposal, we'll do a special on that later. But look, for now, Eddie. I will let you take us home as per normal, but I understand that you're still hurting right now about this. That this is a big story. This is a big trade, and it's one that we've been talking about for a while. So I will just be back. I will just say we'll be back later this week where we're going to do our predictions. We're going to pick 5 games. We're going to do predictions for. We're going to be back later this week to give you the first one of those this season. But for now, Eddie, try your best. Dry your eyes. Take us home.
Listen, Cowboy fans, I know you're feeling it right now. This has been the roughest time. This is a breakup that you didn't see coming. You were blindsided. You gave out all your love and nothing. It just seems like it was just, smashed in your face. You got the honeymoon planned. You got the ring planned. You got the wedding planned. Everything was all perfect. And then the bride didn't show up. That's just exactly how Cowboy fans are feeling. We're hurt, we're confused, we're maybe even angry, right? But football doesn't stop, right? So Micah Parsons, the Green Bay Packers, is wearing green, the color of money. Dallas has got Kenny Clark, maybe he might be singing some classic music for us, if it's got any heritage to any of the Clarks, with some of those great old songs. But week 1 is already upon us, right? And we've just got to pick it up and hope for the win. So drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know how you're feeling. Let's all huddle together. We need each other, during this time as well. And don't forget to hit that notification button as well, and the subscribe button. But we'll see you in the next Across the Gridiron. I'm the bad guy. I'm the